Hey guys, welcome back to RetroActive, the podcast where sometimes we talk down about the past and sometimes we talk up about the past.
Talk up?
Yeah, we talk it up,
Talk it up.
those kind of things.
Okay, yeah, I'll let that
We'll
slide.
go with that one, all right? That was an impromptu little opening tagline. But hey, what's up, everybody? This is Will here, along always with my co-host Joey.
Hello there.
And Joey, what are we talking about today? We're talking about something that's that I thought we thought we had already talked about it, but we kind of didn't.
It was the reverse. So
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, we had talked about games based off of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to flip that around with the release of a couple new movies.
Yep.
Video game-based movies.
Movies based on video games, in other words.
In other words, the two releases that came out just recently, or around the same time.
Yeah.
Angry Birds just came out last week.
Ugh.
This week, Warcraft is coming out.
Yeah. And it's even though it's not out yet, it's already getting a lot of bad press as well. Oh, and there's another movie actually that came out too, a video game movie. I would have thought you would have mentioned
Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank.
No, not gonna mention that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the ones that are big because either they're a big franchise or they stink. So let's talk about these two.
Yeah. Man.
First of all, the one thing I that just springs to mind when I hear these two names is that these movies should have been made a long time ago.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The Angry Bird craze was probably at its peak in 2010,
Right.
if I remember correctly, and maybe Warcraft was like 2008.
Yeah.
So these are long past their due date, and judging by the reviews, it kind of shows.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I first saw the trailer to the Angry Birds movie, that was my initial reaction. I'm like, wow, this movie is way past due. I mean, do people even care about Angry Birds at this point in time?
No, they don't. They literally don't, because it's not on the top 20 or whatever for the App Store anymore.
You just don't see it around as much anymore. And Warcraft, I mean, World of Warcraft has always been like pretty big. But yeah, I mean, I remember that the peak was probably back in 2008, 2009, because I remember coming back from college. That was when all of you guys, all my friends were still playing it all the time. It was like you guys were speaking another language when I hung out with you.
But
good times.
I really do feel that seems to be the case with a lot of video game movies today, in that the production time eventually renders the source material kind of obsolete or outdated. It takes so long because either, they have setbacks based on directors or actors dropping out, and it switches hands so many times that by the time it gets around to being made, people have kind of forgotten about it already.
They've moved on.
But I don't think that's why video game movies have been historically consistently and predictably terrible. That's not the reason, really.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I mean, especially looking back on on a lot of like the past video game based movies, I mean, a lot of those too, it's like they're not really set in a particular time period, I think, or they're not really kind of like tied to that amount of time. It doesn't really matter, I think, when they came out versus when the game came out. It's just that they're usually always really bad movies in particular.
Well, to be fair, a lot of the ones that came out a long time ago, they were released within like the same time period in which the game was released.
Yeah.
So let's go back for a little bit and let's look at the early ones. Super Mario Brothers was the first one, the very first video game based movie.
Oh man, I remember.
And that was 1993, I think. And that was a year after Mario World came out.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Or
it's around then?
1 or 2 years later.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. It was around that period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people know that Mario's like a continuing franchise. It's like their big thing.
Yeah.
It's not like a one-hit wonder like Angry Birds was. But that came out in 93. Street Fighter was maybe 90. Well, I don't even remember. 94?
I think so. Yeah, because I remember we had talked about like when around the time that kind of came out.
Yeah, and then Mortal Kombat was after that, and I think that was 95. So in very quick succession, you can see that these movies were released.
Yep.
And at the time, a lot of the franchises were still very relevant. They were very prominent in either the news or just in games. Like more games came out between or before and after these movies did. But like I said, that I don't think that's the reason that clearly that's not the reason why these movies were bad. These movies were still relevant, yet they were still terrible.
Exactly. They were critically panned, not because they came out after, when nobody cares about Mortal Kombat now or something. And that's not because of that. It was because they were just generally really bad movies. Yeah, and that's kind of what I also wonder too. Is it's like, is this the case with like Warcraft and Angry Birds and Ratchet and Clank? Because a lot of what I'm hearing too is it's like that's the first reaction. It's not just they're long overdue.
Yeah,
but the reaction that comes after that, based on a lot of the articles I've read, is this is yet another example of a movie that is just also not good and does not, it doesn't do justice to its source material. Yeah.
Strange.
Nah, I don't know. I don't think that's. I honestly, I don't think that's strange at all. I think
really
none of this to me is.
Oh, you
new.
mean in terms of like overall video game movies not being very good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly,
that's not strange.
Yeah.
Because if you look back at a lot of the very early movies, they all did a very similar thing, which is not knowing how to balance the camp with the serious parts of the movie.
Oh yeah. Although, I don't know, when looking back at Super Mario Brothers, it feels like all camp to me.
All camp?
100% camp. I don't know.
No, well, okay.
Although, I don't know. I mean, comparing
first of all, I want you to define camp. What would you consider camp?
Camp, I don't know. I guess in a way for me, camp could be defined as sort of not really taking itself too seriously or having elements of almost sort of wackiness in a way.
Yeah, but I feel like camp is based in seriousness. Like they think that they're making something that's pretty good, and they believe it to be good.
Oh, so you mean it's like campy as in it's like
it's like unintentionally.
Unintentionally like bad.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But in a very it turns out to be like in a goofy manner, like you said.
So you're talking like almost like a Uwe Boll kind of way.
We'll get to him. Don't worry. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. It's weird because a lot of the movie or a lot of the games back in the 90s, they weren't really that serious to begin with.
No, yeah. And I was actually going to say that about Super Mario Brothers. It's funny that I look back on the movie and I think, man, yeah, it's like it seems like they just did not take like this movie seriously at all when they made it. But then you look at the games and the games are very much
They're whimsical.
They're whimsical, yeah. They're more like fairy tale like. They're not super serious.
It's really strange that they decided to go that way with something like Mario.
Right. It's almost hard to kind of talk about it.
I know.
Like,
it's
what else
incredibly
do you say about
strange,
that?
but if you think about the change in games, just in like popular games from the 90s up until today, it's such a drastic change because nowadays you have game movies like Silent Hill, you have Resident Evil, Hitman, and Warcraft. A lot of the source material grew up.
Yeah,
if you think about it, but that does not necessarily warrant a more serious movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting you say that too, that the video games also grew up because I feel like a lot of those particular games too, they also got a lot more cinematic.
Yeah.
Because back in the days with the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, games were very simple. They relied more on the mechanics and the gameplay and everything, and the stories often felt like secondary to the gameplay itself. Whereas nowadays, to draw players into like the narrative and everything, a lot of these games are a lot more cinematic and have a lot more story elements to them. Which is it would translate better, right?
That's the one thing that just doesn't make any sense because people who make Warcraft, they make really, really good cinematics, like animated stuff.
They do.
Why is it that? Okay, I understand that they hand it off to a different studio and a different scriptwriter, but based off of that, they can't even make something that good.
Yeah,
translate into the big screen.
It's kind of strange because you think about how the Warcraft movie is also being perceived. A lot of it is too. It's like a lot of the reviews that I've read have talked about how the reviewers that like they have to shove all of this lore into like a 2 hour
2 hour
movie.
movie.
And this is all this lore from a game that's a series that's been out for how many
20 years.
decades now? 2 decades worth of lore shoved into this little 2 hour movie. And then of course you have all these characters from both sides, like the orcs and the humans. And how do you even manage to put in all that kind of like character development? How do you put in all that plot and everything into such a short amount of time and make people care about it? Because that's been the biggest problem I feel with a lot of these movies. It's like you're just not invested enough in the characters, and in the story and what's going on. It's just, why should I care about this stuff?
You know what I find funny though?
Yeah,
You look at Mario Brothers; it's the complete opposite.
That's
where
true.
the game had no story, pretty much. It was just Mario and the princess and Bowser. And then they decided to add all these things as opposed to taking it away in Warcraft. But the end result still seems to be the same.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it seems like no matter what they do to the story, if they add elements, they take away elements, pare it down, trying to build it up, it eventually ends up being exactly the same.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Exactly. It's weird that you would think that you could go one way or the other by, like either stick really close to the source material or, change enough so that it fits a movie, and either way it still winds up being bad. And I think there's lots of examples of that too.
Okay, well, here, I'll go through a couple of them.
Yeah, you got a list all lined up about what we're talking about?
I have a list of a couple of promising movies, or maybe not promising, maybe at the time they were promising, but these are ones that had mild success.
Yeah.
But, still fall under the realm of video game movies, so you can kind of tell the quality.
Right.
The first one I want to talk about was Resident Evil.
The original one?
No, all of them.
Oh, the series in general. Okay.
And that's already right there. That's really telling of the direction that the series went in. The fact that it's even a franchise to begin with.
Yeah.
A franchise that, despite not having the best movies in the world, they all did pretty well at the box office.
They've been really successful, which is, I mean, I don't think that's surprising considering like when the first one came out, it was around the time that, like what was that, Resident Evil
4 or something?
4 was coming out soon too, and I think that was kind of also the direction the franchise seemed like it was heading in, as to being a more action-oriented series.
Yeah. And that's kind of what they did to the movie. They made it into an action movie.
Yeah.
But all these movies, they do have the advantage of being horror as well. And as anyone who likes film and recognizes genres will know that horror movies are always very, or I won't say always, but most of the time, they're very, very profitable.
Right.
And that's because they either use, very low budgets, or they have, they're very, very, I don't know how to put this, but like themed releases. They'll always release them around October. To get people in the mood. And even if it's not a very good movie, people will go out to see it because they want to be scared.
Yeah, people seem to enjoy being scared, especially in the movies. You're sitting there in like a dark room with a bunch of other people, and when one person jumps, of course everybody jumps.
Yeah, it's more about the experience of being in the theater as opposed to the movie themselves. That's why you got some crap like Haunting Connecticut 2 or whatever.
The Conjuring.
The thing is, you get sequels for horror movies just like being pumped out because they're so cheap.
Yeah, definitely.
And even though Resident Evil is a little bit bigger budget than that, it doesn't rely on like $4 million or whatever. I feel like for a franchise as big as it is, it's still relatively inexpensive to make, and that's why they've been so successful.
Yeah, and I think Resident Evil 2, it has also that draw of like, it includes just enough of the games, enough elements of the games for the fans, while also changing up the actual style of it from being like a slow-paced survival horror sort of thing.
No one would have wanted to watch that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, you can't imagine like a straight up adaptation of the game being that interesting of a movie. Like, you're following one or two characters, they're wandering through like a mansion and everything, and shooting one or two zombies every now and then also solving puzzles in order to unlock doors. It's not very interesting. So of course, what do you do when you bring it to the big screen? You have to make people want to go see it, and the easiest way to do that, of course, is like add in action elements, add in like more like horror moments, like jumpy horror moments
Yeah.
in particular too. And I feel like they, especially at the time, they did a good job with it. Like I actually really liked that movie initially.
The first one?
The first one in particular. I actually liked the second one too, because they threw in a lot of elements from Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, which at the time were some of my favorite survival horror games. And, it was entertaining. That was the thing. It was an entertaining movie. I wouldn't say it's high quality
nobody
cinema.
is saying that
Yeah.
the Resident Evil franchise movies are good.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what you're saying.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that they figured out the formula to make it successful and
Yeah.
profitable, and that's something that no other franchise as far as video game movies goes has figured out.
Yeah, because most of them, not only are they critically panned, but they also tank at the box office, if
Not
I'm
all
not
of 'em.
mistaken. Not all of them, but I think...
This leads into my next one right here,
Mhm.
which is basically what we were talking about, is Prince of Persia.
Oh, yes.
And this is a movie that wanted to be a franchise so badly.
Right, because it was produced by what? By Jerry Bruckheimer's
And
studio,
Disney.
right? And Disney, yeah.
So yeah, it had all that power, all that money behind
Yep,
it. And
all the
it's-
star power and
Yeah,
everything.
and it still could not get it done.
Right. I didn't even actually see that, to be honest.
Surprisingly, it made over $300 million,
Mm-hmm.
but that apparently was not enough for them to continue making them.
Right. It wasn't like a blowout box office success like they were hoping for, right? Yeah,
like-
because that has some big stars in it. Jake Gyllenhaal playing the main character.
Kingsley, I
Ben
think?
Kingsley, yeah.
Yeah, like with a movie like that, like similar to Pirates of the Caribbean or
Yeah.
National Treasure or any one of those mid 2000, big
Mm-hmm.
like big budget action adventure movies, 300 million is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
You think about like how much I think the first Pirates or the second ones, they made like over $1 billion,
Yeah.
and that was considered good by Disney.
Right.
Good.
Good
Not-
enough to
not
at least make
amazing.
another one.
Yeah, but 300 million was not enough. It's almost like they didn't get the audience that they wanted to, really.
Right.
I don't know. It's really weird because if you think about how they marketed this film, it's like, if I remember the poster correctly, it was, a hero shot of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yep, buff
And it was
Jake
just
Gyllenhaal.
basically like bold, like text, just said Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
And that's like the most generic marketing you could.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Like I said, that's like the most generic marketing campaign you can run on the movie like this.
Yeah.
And they probably wanted to get as many people as they could to buy into it. Just by
Right.
adding this like really plain text over it.
It's like, hey, this movie stars Jake Gyllenhaal. He's buff, and he's apparently, from Persia, and he's a prince.
Sure.
Cool.
And the problem with that is that in the end, I feel like the people who like the game,
You're right.
they didn't bother watch it. They didn't bother watch it.
Yeah.
And then
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, and then all the people who don't know about the game, who didn't understand what it was, they kind of just dismissed it as another action adventure, like generic movie, like Sahara.
Yeah. Or like
Around the
Gods
same
of
time.
Egypt. Or
Yeah,
something.
like those kinds of movies. It's Prince of Persia, I feel like, is a really strange movie, or it has strange circumstances around it.
Yeah.
In that it's the most successful video game movie of all time. $336 million.
Yeah. You mean in terms of straight up like money?
Yeah, money. It made all that money. It had all this power. You could tell that they wanted to make this franchise, and it just never happened.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads into like one of the big issues of, I think, video game movies in general, is that to me, a lot of these movies, they just don't, it doesn't seem like the studios that make them, it doesn't really seem like they don't exactly know who they're making this movie for. Like, are they making this movie for fans of the genre of the games themselves? Because if so, why change all the things around? To like you should be appealing to the fans by trying to make a really good adaptation.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like you also have to realize too that especially with the big budget releases, it's like you're trying to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Prince of Persia, it was. I didn't see the film, but I assume they just took the very basic premise.
Yeah, like the bare bones.
that,
of it.
like that his dad can rewind time and whatever, and they just ran with that and just kind of made this They just probably just slapped together some story about a princess and
Yeah.
running through a whatever country he's
Right.
in.
So this obviously wouldn't be made for like straight up fans of the game. This is not meant to appeal to like the hardcore Prince of Persia fans.
Are there any out there?
I'm sure there's one or two, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, it feels more like it's exactly that. It's a movie that was made to basically make money,
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like that's how it is with a lot of these movies. It's just like that was one of the complaints that I read about the Warcraft movie. It's like, who is this
Really?
movie for? Yeah, like who is this movie
No,
for?
well, okay.
If it's
I don't really think that they made that just to make money.
right.
The reason why I say that is because the people that are involved with this, I feel they actually care about the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I heard that Duncan Jones was directing it, I got pretty excited because, for one, I like his work, and two, I also... Oh, do I also believe that? No. Well, I'm not going to say I don't believe it, but, he says that he really likes the game. He plays it, and, he knows these characters. So
Yeah.
he, just as a person, like his personality, he seems like he would be someone to trust to direct something like this.
Yeah.
The son of David Bowie,
Yeah. Well,
He doesn't seem like he has a very big ego either, so he's like very passionate about what he's doing because he doesn't make a lot of movies. He's made maybe 3. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
He's made Moon, he made
yeah.
Source Code, and I think Warcraft is his only other one.
Oh, okay. Well, still, it just it's. Okay.
I mean, sure, there are plenty more out there that are just made to make money. That's not very surprising.
No. I mean, it's easy enough to basically like buy up the rights to a really popular game that's already making quite a lot of money, and then just put out a film version of it. But I mean, I think also too one of the things that we haven't really kind of I think we've been sort of beating around the topic is
What?
Why is it so hard then to bring these games to the big screen and have them be like not only financially successful but just good overall movies?
That's a really good question, Will.
Yeah, I mean, because you and I, we both have played games all of our lives, and that's kind of one of I would like to think that's one of our main gigs is video games, but we also both majored in film. We both went to school to like study into. Well, I went to school mostly just to study like and critically analyze films. You went to school to make movies in particular, so coming from that direction of being film people who like games, it's like we should look at that. Why is it so hard? What's missing? Why haven't we had a good video game?
I feel
movie?
like one reason why it's so hard is that video games should remain video games.
Oh, you think so?
I mean, I don't. It's not to say that I don't think any franchise is ripe for an adaptation into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that a lot of what makes a game great gets lost within the process of making it into just something that you stare at for 2 hours.
Right.
Instead of something that you interact with for 30, 40, 50 plus or whatever.
Right.
And it's really hard to recapture that when you are the protagonist or whatever you are in the game. How exactly is that going to translate into something that you no longer have any control over?
Yeah, I think that's also been the biggest argument about why video game movies are bad.
Interactivity.
Yeah, because it's like movies are a very passive medium when you compare them to like video games, because like the video games inherently require the player's input in order to actually to work right, so it's like part of the joy we get from playing games is influencing how the story works, influencing how the characters like interact with the world around them and everything, and and it's nice to see our actions actually create meaning within these games too. So
like Mario.
Yeah, well, even that, you're the one controlling Mario.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, you are Mario in the game, And I think there's some like professor who studies film at a school somewhere that I know was quoted. He was quoted in what was that? In Game Theory. There was an episode of Game Theory about this topic like about a year ago. And he basically was quoted in saying like, you as a player, you're like the director. If you were to look at a video game like a movie, you're the director. You're the one that's influencing everything. So when you have a video game movie and you're just sitting down to watch it, you're losing that control, that sense of control,
exactly.
like you just said, which is, it's not as interesting for us, to just not only to watch, but just, to interact with. Like we're not really interacting with it anymore. We're just basically watching it.
Yeah, watching something that,
Yeah.
for one, we already know the story of,
Exactly.
most likely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of lost on fans of the games. Like, what can you even do to a movie
Yeah,
that will make a fan of the game who's played it and knows everything about it want to watch it?
Yeah. And I think, too, from when I was thinking about it, I feel like it's especially difficult to do with games to make movies that are based on games where it's like the protagonist is, in a sense, like it's made to be you. Like, especially a lot of the open world games, like Fallout in particular, some of the early Grand Theft Auto games where you were just kind of like, a character that really didn't talk or didn't have a name or anything. It's all about you and all about like your adventures through like the world and everything. Or games like Skyrim in particular, the Elder Scrolls games that are very much dependent on like how you want to play it and what kind of person you are playing this game.
Well, I mean, for those games, I can see movies being made using, at the very least, the universe that it's set in. Not necessarily the character, because it's you and you don't really have a name within that story. But if they were to make a movie based on Skyrim or any other game with a silent protagonist, I can see it being made in a way that utilizes the setting more than the actual characters.
Right.
So that's one way you could go about it.
No, that's good. That's a good.
If
that's
you
a good
think about
there.
a lot of the movies that were made back in the 90s, that wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
Like you had Mario, and that was okay. Technically, you are not Mario. Mario's still that character.
Right.
And in the movie, they have to use him because that's what the game is about.
That's who we're watching. That's what the movie's about.
So I don't know. It seems like there's a very large change between 90s video game movies and today, in terms of what they can make.
Right. And honestly, too, I think like a lot of it too is that not only have games grown up in terms of the material themselves and in terms of how they're made and how they're becoming like more focused on narrative and becoming more cinematic and everything, but I think also too in terms of like the length of a game, how long games are a lot of times, because
what do you mean? Because for one, I feel like they're getting shorter.
Okay, yeah. All right,
they're slowly turning into movies.
So you look at, we'll go back to the 90s in particular, especially around let's talk about Super Nintendo era and
that's my favorite
and Sega
time.
Genesis era. So some of the games that had the strongest narratives and the strongest stories were, for example, RPGs. Your favorite genre of games. RPGs. And you look at how long some of those games go on for, like Final Fantasy VI, which was one of the best RPGs on the Super Nintendo. You could be sitting there for like 60 to 70 hours playing that game, even if you take out all the time you're spending like battling, just to get through like the world and the universe and get through that story would take you longer than 3 or 4 hours, which is the length of a longish kind of Lord of the Rings length movie, So you feel like if you're sitting there and if you're tasked with making a movie version of this, like Final Fantasy VI in particular, how do you shove all of that lore and all of that like backstory, and how do you create this world in such a short amount of time? And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's like it's so difficult to do that, to basically include all that backstory for an established franchise while also trying to give them like newcomers to this movie, like people who don't know this story already and who don't know these characters in this world, giving them enough information that they're invested and engaged in the movie. Right. It's so hard to do that.
As far as Final Fantasy goes, I think if you were to tackle a movie based on that, you kind of have to just let the people who aren't fans of the movie, you just gotta let them go.
Right.
Because you have to focus on making a movie out of this, not a game. And what I would do if I were to make a Final Fantasy movie is take just a very small snippet of that entire story. I don't know if I have not played 6, so I don't know what the story is, but let's use an example here. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Think about that. All right?
Yep.
Have you watched it?
I have watched it.
Okay,
I liked
so
it.
you know that it's not the entire Final Fantasy VII story.
Right. Actually, it's a sequel.
It's
set
like, yeah,
after
it's a spin-off, or it's a continuation of it.
Right.
And so it's its own thing. And clearly this did not, do well with the general audience. A lot of people, like, it was released in theaters, but
I didn't even know it was released in
yeah,
theaters.
did you know that they played it at the Metreon?
No. Well, that would make sense to me because because there used to be the PlayStation store there and they held a lot, and it used to be Sony Metreon.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Sony used to own it.
I think they still do, right?
They might, I guess.
But yeah, that happened. Not a lot of people went to go see it. Most of the people that went were fans.
Of course.
But it still happened. They made a movie that they wanted to make. They didn't have to make concessions based off of what's going to happen when people don't understand who this character is. We have to explain it this way, and they kind of they cut off a lot of the fat for that movie, I think.
Yeah,
and that's why. Actually, no, I don't want to spoil this for you, but I'll get to my point a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
I have a little something for you later.
You're gonna derail it there, okay? But yeah, it's funny you bring that Advent Children up because there are a lot of movies that they actually, they don't get a theatrical release, but they're very good video game movies. Like I think, there was a Resident Evil movie that actually was made by Capcom. Like it was a 3D movie that was made by Capcom.
Animated?
Yeah, like a 3D animated movie, and it actually starred the actual characters. And it was supposed to actually take place within the Resident Evil video game canon. But it was a film, and I think it was just released straight to DVD.
In Japan, right?
Yeah, and I remember watching it and thinking like, this works as a movie. It's something that's part of the series, and it works really well as a movie, even if it necessarily wouldn't have made a great game. Much like I think Advent Children kind of was like that.
Okay, well, do you think that's because it's animated and because it looks more like the game already?
I mean, not necessarily. They probably could have done it as a live action, but of course, it's like it would have probably needed a lot more money, a lot more time.
You could do a lot less with live action, than you can do with animated movies, where you can recapture the game a lot more easily in animated movie because it's already 3D or whatever.
Exactly. Another example actually that I thought that worked really well was do you ever remember the series Dead Space?
Yes.
Yeah. Before Dead Space came out, there was, or I don't know if it might have been right before or right after the first Dead Space came out. There was actually a movie that served as a prequel to the whole first game.
I remember that. It was an anime style, right?
Yes, it was a 2D animated movie called Dead Space Downfall. Downfall? I'm pretty sure Dead Space Downfall. I might have to look that up.
You're the fan. I don't know.
Yeah, but it. Oh man, that movie did such a great job of setting up the game for me because I actually saw the movie before I ever played the game, and and it actually really
is that what you were supposed to do?
I don't think so. I really
it just
don't think
spoils everything for you, and then you're like, well, why am I playing the game now?
Well, it didn't really spoil a lot. I feel like because the funny thing is, I actually never really finished Dead Space because I played.
How dare you talk about
a couple of hours.
You talk about how good it is, how it's one of the best like scary games, and then you don't even finish it.
Yeah, well, it's because it's scary.
Will Chang, everyone.
See, it does its job well when you're too scared to play it that you can't finish it, all right? That game scares the crap out of me. But the movie also was super good at setting it up, and it's like even without all this knowledge of the world and the universe of Dead Space, it does a really good job of setting up the situation. And I think that if you can have video game movies that are like that also make you really want to play the game and explore the universe in more depth, it's done a good job.
Did the Street Fighter movie make you want to play Street Fighter?
No, it did not.
Did it make you want to play Street Fighter, the movie, the game?
It made me want to play that even less, I think. But I will say that Mortal Kombat, the movie, the original, the first one, that is actually one of my favorite video game movies.
You know what? I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I'm
never
sorry.
Seen it. Well,
but it's funny that you mentioned because I also hear that a lot from other people that it's not as bad as people remember.
I think it might actually have either the highest or the second highest Metacritic score of all the theatrically released video game adaptations. Yeah. Which is, that doesn't actually surprise me, to be honest, because honestly, the Mortal Kombat movie wasn't that bad to me. And a lot of it, in terms of a video game movie, it might be the best one only because,
it's pretty faithful to the game.
Yeah, a lot of it is it keeps the soul of the game intact.
The soul.
The soul of the game.
Like Shao, or
Exactly.
What was his name?
Shang Tsung.
Shang Tsung.
Your soul is mine. Exactly.
I was gonna call him, what was it? Shao Kahn.
Shao Kahn.
I was gonna call him Shere Khan.
Shere Khan, like he cuts your hair, you know, like.
No, like in the Jungle Book.
Oh.
God.
Whoops. Obviously, I haven't seen the Jungle Book in a while, but yeah, I mean, what I liked about Mortal Kombat and a lot of how it kept the soul intact was, you know, like you look at the Mortal Kombat games, they're about the characters, you know, and the characters are all like they're
really goofy.
They're kooky. They're pretty unique, even though they're almost cliche in a lot of ways, you know. And of course, like it's about the fighting and the blood and the gore. And honestly, the movie took both of those things, and they did it justice. You know, it wasn't as gory and as gross as it could have been. You know, but I'm assuming that's also to like avoid like the ratings.
Yeah,
to avoid it like getting
keep it PG-13.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't change very much of it. They actually were pretty faithful to the story. Well, they borrowed a lot of elements from other martial arts movies, like most particularly Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. The setup is almost the exact same.
It's just like the tournament.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
come on and fight.
Yeah, you got all these characters brought together for a fighting tournament. They get on a boat, they sail to an island in the middle of nowhere to fight in this tournament called Mortal Kombat.
And then they fight.
And then it all becomes. Then that's where they kind of jump into the whole story of Mortal Kombat, where you have like mortals fighting against like these people from another realm, and you have gods like Raiden and Shao Kahn coming in.
It's clear that they didn't really change much.
Yeah, they didn't. And you know what? It was great. I saw it actually twice in theaters when I was a kid.
Wow.
Twice.
You know
I never do that.
Okay, so you think about that. You think about how faithful Mortal Kombat was.
Yeah.
And then you look at Street Fighter, and then you wonder what happened.
Yeah,
because they were released around the same time.
Yeah.
Even though, Street Fighter came out first.
It did.
You think about, if you remember watching that movie, and you're just waiting for any one of the characters to do a move from the game.
Do a Hadouken.
And then they never do it.
Do they never do it?
At the very end, they start to. I think you see, like, I don't even know if there's like a flash kick in there, but I think, Bison, he does his Psycho Crusher at the very end.
Right.
There's no purple, there's no flames or anything, but he still like dives at them or whatever.
He
does it like 5 times in a row.
Right. I think that might have been also the problem too, because it's like it's a movie based on a fighting game that has a lot of
talking.
It has a lot of unique characters, is what I mean. The unique, colorful cast of characters, and you don't do any of the fighting. Where's the fighting? It's Street Fighter. You're supposed to be fighting.
I know.
And what's up with all this talking and drama and like, I'm going to get in my boat and I'm going to sail up the river and kick that son of a bitch bison's ass.
That is a prime example of how not to do a video game movie.
Yeah, you're not being faithful. You don't do justice to your source material, you know? That's like taking the source material and almost making it a joke. Making it into a joke.
Like this is also a case of them adapting it into a movie and then trying to make it more serious than they're capable of making it.
Yeah, because it turned out ridiculous.
Because it's Street Fighter. You don't care when you play the game.
Right.
You don't care about the story, really.
No.
You care about the cool moves, the fighting, the battles between the characters. That's what you want to see.
Right.
When you have a movie that's more story based, that's when you can elaborate on it and continue with the characters, and you give people dialogue. It doesn't work in Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I don't think
Street Fighter's never had a particularly strong like narrative either. None of the games ever have, as far as I've seen too. I mean, Mortal Kombat honestly had a stronger story in the game series
Which
than
is surprising.
Street Fighter ever did. And I guess it's not really surprising to me, honestly. It's like they spent a good amount of time, especially for the newer Mortal Kombat games, really crafting like a pretty good story and a pretty good reason for them to fight in the first place. Whereas in Street Fighter, it's never really established. I mean,
they just kind of ride on the fact that their battle system and
Yeah.
the mechanics are a lot better, so they're just like, oh, let's just work on that.
yeah, I mean, you have certain rivalries that go on within the game, like if you were to play the arcade mode or anything.
But you don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, honestly, you don't really care. Like, nobody ever really cares about that, to be honest.
And that's how it should stay
Yeah.
in the movie.
That's fine. Yeah. If you could keep those elements intact.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I was like a lot there. There were a couple things I was thinking of too about how they could go about making like a good a good video game adaptation. One of the things is I noticed that there's an Uncharted movie coming out soon.
Yes.
And honestly, that has the potential to be
The potential?
the potential. That has the potential to be a really good movie because the game itself already takes so many cues from action movies.
I
And
know.
it's
It's
such a cinematic game.
Yeah, Uncharted is basically Indiana Jones.
Exactly. So that's the thing that they need to do with this movie. They need to not change that fact. They should not spend any amount of time trying to like translate the video game elements of Uncharted into the movie. If they were to just basically do a straight up adaptation of the story parts of the first Uncharted game, that would be perfectly fine. I think that would actually be a really enjoyable movie if you get a really likable lead. Like actually, I think Nathan Fillion was
He was only
really
because he looks like him.
no, I know, but he was really trying to like to pitch that like I want to be Nathan Drake. You know what? And I think he would be awesome as Nathan Drake. He's got the right personality, the right mix of like, sort of like a dashing sort of anti-hero, but also, he's got the comedic chops too to make that to really perfect that role. And I think if you get somebody like a likable lead, you get some really good actors to play like the side characters, like Victor Sullivan and Elena Fisher and the villains and stuff. That could be a really good movie. That would be awesome. I would.
Who
watch
would you?
that.
Who would if you were the producer? You were also the studio, so you can make all your own decisions.
Yeah.
Who would you hire as a director?
As a director, see that's even harder. Yeah, because I would want somebody who first of all knows how to do action, not comedy.
Okay.
We talked about that before with our
With
our first
Jumanji.
wretched reboots. It's like in Jumanji about getting. First of all, it's like Uncharted is about the action. Get somebody who can do action sequences.
Such as?
I don't know. You'd be better, I think, at figuring that out than me. Not Michael Bay, that's for sure.
Oh.
We don't need stuff blowing up. We just need like really good chase scenes and firefights, for example,
Gotta think about this. Steven Spielberg was at one point probably your best bet.
Yeah.
About 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Nowadays, oh man. That's a good question. We gotta look this up and maybe come back to it later.
If you guys have any suggestions about who would make a good director for a movie like that, then please let us know. Another game that I thought that would make a really good film too. A lot of their games would, but a lot of Rockstar's games, because Rockstar, especially with their more recent Grand Theft Auto games and with some of their more recent titles like Red Dead Redemption and L.A. Noire, those also take a lot of elements from cinema in particular. And I honestly thought Red Dead Redemption, that would make an awesome movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, if you took the main story of the game and you kind of obviously cut out a lot of the filler that you would see in the games, that would make a super cool movie. It's Westerns were coming back for a while there, and I think they still are they're still kind of
headed by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
pretty
Quentin
much. He's like the
Tarantino.
only person directing Westerns nowadays.
Yeah. And honestly, I think he would be a pretty good director for a movie like that, like Red Dead Redemption, because it does have a lot of those elements too of like having that, especially the way that Quentin Tarantino does like shootout scenes too. I think that would lend itself very well to a game like Red Dead Redemption. And Red Dead Redemption also does have a lot of really good dialogue sequences too.
Yeah.
Which I think, if Quentin Tarantino were to put his, trademark sort of spin on a lot of those scenes, that could be really cool. That would be an awesome movie to watch. I would see that,
Another Western by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
But
he does pretty good with them,
he's
though.
gonna quit sooner or later, right?
Probably.
He said he was gonna quit after Hateful Eight. Or
Yeah.
wait, no, it wasn't 9 movies and then he's done?
I think so.
Or is it
Something like
10?
that.
It might have been 10.
I thought he said he was done after he did Inglourious Bastards, but then of course he came out with 2 more after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely making games, see, I'm getting confused now with all this stuff. Making movies based on games that have strong cinematic and story elements is probably a good bet to it's a good baseline to start with when you're looking at what video game can I make a movie based on. something with a good, strong story. Because
Okay.
strong writing and strong narrative is already there. You go. You have like one fourth or one third of a really good movie right there. You know.
Well, let's take that and apply it to a movie that's already coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Assassin's Creed.
Oh, okay.
And after watching the trailer, actually I have a little bit of hope for it.
Yeah.
Have you watched it?
I didn't actually see the trailer. I was gonna watch it the other day.
So it's they take the very, very, as far as story goes in the trailer, they take the very simplest form of explaining it to people, and I feel like it kind of works. Because if you think about the story of Assassin's Creed, you're basically this guy who's apparently dead.
Yeah, well, because
And then-
you're looking into
you're going
you're
into
into
his
past memories.
Yeah, they hook him up
or
to a
previous
machine.
lifetimes. Yeah,
They hook him up to a machine, and then they go into like his memories of his ancestors who were all these assassins.
right.
And so it's like a play between the past and then also like the future as well.
The present. Yeah,
And so as far as movies go, I feel like that's a good setup for one.
yeah, definitely.
Like it's a good plot device, and I feel like it can work within 2 hours. It's not something that requires 30, 40 plus hours to really know what's going on.
Yeah, because I feel like too, if one, you're aiming to have this be a franchise, you don't really need to spend as much time setting up the stuff in the present. I feel like, because you can continue on that with each movie.
Yeah.
Because that's how the games I think are set up. I've never actually played like any of the Assassin's Creed games, but from what I gather, that's kind of the way it's set up. It's like it's sort of left off at the end of each installment. And then you see a little bit more as you go on in the series. And I think if they have this idea that they want to do more than just the one movie, that probably is a good idea to do. And then make it more focused on the parts with the actual assassins. Like, is this one based on the first game?
I believe so.
So it's supposed to be
or no, maybe the second one. I need to watch the trailer again, or I need to read about it more.
It would make sense to me if it was based on the second one, because that was the one that was most, I think, commercially successful, and I think that's the one that fans usually claim is the best one.
Yeah,
the second one with the
Black Flag is supposed to be really good.
Oh, the pirate one.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they're gonna go with the second one on this. But just judging by the trailer, you can tell that like previous knowledge of the movie is not required.
Right.
Like they explain everything really, really quickly, and it looks cool. Like it looks like a movie that people would want to go out to see, like as a blockbuster.
Well, good. That's a good start.
It's funny because the whole part about seriousness that I was talking about earlier, this trailer I feel like had a nice balance between like how crazy its idea is and then also how cool it wants to make the movie. It's not trying to be too dramatic or too. It's not trying to be too dramatic, too serious, but at the same time, it's not trying to be like humorous or goofy or anything. Like, I don't know. It's a weird feeling when I have high hopes for a video game movie.
Yeah. Well, I think that's how a lot of people felt about Warcraft too. But then, you have both of those routes. You have movies that try to be super serious when they don't really have to be. Like Warcraft, I hear, is a lot like that. And then you have movies that take the subject matter and they just sort of make it into a joke almost. Like what comes to mind, obviously, is, although you shouldn't take it seriously as a game either, is DOA, Dead or Alive.
Oh no!
I remember watching that movie.
Or the Tekken movie.
Or the Tekken movie. I actually haven't seen the Tekken movie. Is that like that too?
It probably is.
Yeah. But yeah, DOA, oh man, that was funny. But that's the thing, is it's like it does not take itself seriously at all. I mean, they even make sure to shoehorn in like a volleyball scene so that plays reference to Extreme Beach Volleyball.
Oh my god. Well, I think Assassin's Creed, it toes the line between being serious but not too serious.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
not serious.
It's a very strange, like I said, it just feels weird to commend this film.
Well, it's also you're talking about like not so serious, like the way they did with Batman versus Superman, apparently.
Yeah, just like no,
so deadpan serious.
But it's not. that's not to say that there's jokes in the trailer itself. It's just
Mm-hmm.
very. I guess the best way I can put it is that Assassin's Creed has always seemed like a franchise that translates well into film.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's always something about that story that I liked. Just about the concept of this guy traveling through his like ancestors' past and
Yeah.
reliving those events that could. I guess it works as a movie, and I hope it does. I
Yeah.
really do.
I mean, I think we're really kind of due for that too. We're really due for a video game movie that that really does well as a movie and does its source material justice. Because that's the thing. It's like I don't think that there should not be adaptations.
Yeah,
of
they
video
should they
games.
should try at least.
Yeah, I just think that it's like high time that we really that studios that are gonna put forth the money for these get people that are competent enough to make like really good ones. And
Yeah.
that they still respect the source material they're coming from. In fact, I think that I feel like too that the developers of the games like shouldn't just be selling off the rights and then just going like, all right, do whatever you want with it. They should have more involvement. They should basically take a look at this and say, hey, you know what? We don't really think that this is the right direction that you should be taking this in necessarily, and that's not exactly what the intention is. So you might want to think about doing it this way, like having a little bit more input in the creative process.
But I mean that's all on the studios right there, and whether or not they want to allow that.
Yeah, because honestly, there have been a lot of better fan films than there have been, good video game movies.
Well, I mean, with Assassin's Creed, once again, they have Michael Fassbender, who is probably the best actor to have ever been in a video game movie.
Like Dennis Hopper as Bowser Koopa?
No. I mean, he might give the best performance in a video game, and maybe not the best actor overall.
Oh, get those plumbers!
Ugh.
Monkey. Oh, I miss Dennis Hopper.
He's dead?
Yeah, you didn't know he passed away a couple of years ago.
I don't remember.
Yeah, rest in peace, Mr. Hopper.
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to close it out here with a little bit of trivia.
Yeah, you got some trivia.
Yeah.
What you got, Let's hear it.
All right. So this is what I want you to do.
You
better not be looking at my list.
I'm not.
Okay.
I
so
swear.
this is what I want you to do. I have a list of the 3 top video game movies based on the Rotten Tomato scores.
Based on the Rotten Tomato scores.
Did you look at them?
I think I glanced at it last night. Like I glanced at the Wikipedia list of video game movies.
Okay.
All right, but I might not remember them right.
Okay, I want you to name the top 3.
The top 3.
If you better not be checking either.
I'm not.
If you don't know, just take
hands
your
off
best
the computer.
Your best guesses.
I'm pretty sure one of them is Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of them. Mortal Kombat. Is that up there?
Okay, well, tell
you want me to just
tell
give
me
you
your 3.
All right, so Final Fantasy Spirits Within, Mortal Kombat, and what else was a good video game movie? Prince of Persia?
Okay, you got 2 out of 3.
Which 2 did I get right?
You got Final Fantasy,
Yep.
and you got Prince of Persia.
Oh, Mortal Kombat was not up there?
It was not up there.
Oh.
Number 2. Okay, so Final Fantasy was the number 1.
Yeah.
Is the top video game movie with 44%.
Right, I remember that. 44%.
Still freaking rotten.
That's still an F.
Prince of Persia is in 3rd place with 36%.
Oh, okay.
And coming in at 2nd, only 1% behind the behind Final Fantasy, is Angry Birds.
What? Really?
43%. It almost became the number 1 video game movie of all time.
That would have been really sad. Like, really sad.
Despite how all the stuff that you've been hearing about, how it's terrible, how it's outdated,
Yeah.
it could have been the best.
It's still currently sitting, according to Rotten Tomatoes, as the 2nd best video game movie of all time.
Yep.
That's really sad.
Okay. Second
All
trivia
right,
question.
let's keep going. I like this. Trivia Wednesdays.
Uwe Boll. Uwe
Boll?
Uwe?
Yeah. I think it's Uwe.
Uwe Boll directed however many video game movies during
too
his
many.
lifetime, even though he's still alive.
Too freaking many.
5 of them were released in theaters.
Yep.
What are those 5?
Let's see. So House of the Dead, Alone in the Dark, which I think is also currently one of the worst movies of all time.
I think it has a 1%.
Yeah. Alone in the Dark. Blood Rain? I don't know if he did Blood Rain. Let me see. What else did he do? In the Name of the King, which is a dungeon siege movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Postal?
Oh, I think I messed up on this. I don't have Dungeon Siege on here because I thought that was released on home video.
Oh, I don't know. It might have been. Well, there's like 3 of them.
I
like
gotta
3 of
double
those
check it.
freaking movies.
But one you did miss, Far Cry.
Oh, he directed Far Cry?
He made a Far Cry
There's
movie.
a Far Cry movie?
There's a Far Cry movie.
Really? I must not have been
It was
paying
made
attention to
it was
that.
made in 2008.
What?
Yeah.
That long ago?
Yeah.
Wow, I was really not paying attention to that whole list because I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I don't remember there being a Far Cry movie, let alone one directed by Uwe Boll. Who was in that movie?
Let's see. The poster has a guy that looks super generic. He looks like the guy that you make, or it looks like the guy that starts off when you make a new character in like Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
Who is this guy? Till Schweiger.
Who the fuck is that?
Sounds German.
Well, that would make sense in that case because Uwe Boll is German. All
His
right.
name is Uwe anyway.
It's a German name. Who
Okay.
knows? You got any more trivia for
Oh,
me?
last one.
All right.
It's a little bit shorter. There's no list, but how much money has the Resident Evil franchise made so far
So far?
worldwide?
Oh, should I just give like a over under kind of number?
Yeah.
Resident Evil, how much has it made? I want to say, well, so how many movies are there? There's like 4?
7?
7?
6?
Holy crap.
I think there's 5 maybe.
I must have missed out on like the last 4 of them. In that
Wait, hold
case.
on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5.
Okay, 5.
I thought there was more.
I want to say it's probably over 1.5 billion worldwide.
Damn, you're generous. It's 915 million.
Oh, 9. Well, okay, that's not too well. All right.
A little 500
I
million
should have
off.
said $1 billion. You know, it's like
Yeah,
that would
well,
have been a lot closer.
When the last one comes out, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, it will pass $1 billion.
Yeah, because I mean, well, you probably should make that amount of
I
money.
mean, there's your $1 billion franchise for video games right there.
Yeah, but it took what? It'll take
Took 10 years.
6 movies to do that. Yeah.
Wait, how many years did it take? 14 years. Good Lord.
Yeah, because the first one was what, 2000?
2002.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I remember seeing that in theaters, like in high school.
I was with you.
Oh, right. Did we go see that together?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we saw a lot of movies together. I remember that.
All right. Well, okay. That's all the trivia I have.
Oh, damn it. I was hoping for more.
I can always look up more later, and
that's all
I can
right.
text it to you. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, that was actually on my list of like what does work for video game movies. Never hire Uwe Boll ever.
That works.
Never
for everyone.
sell him any license and never let him make another movie ever again because he is terrible. And he actually believes that he's making really good movies.
He's like a worse The Room guy.
Yeah, whoever that guy
I don't
was.
remember his name.
It's
All
okay.
right. let's end this. Okay. Come back to our final round.
Final round.
Yeah, we had to shoot this a little early this week because you're doing something this weekend, I think, right? You're gonna be
Yeah.
going all weekend.
Or when people have heard this, I will have already gone and then come
And
back.
come back, yeah,
from,
that's true.
From Lake Tahoe.
The magic of like schedules and recording and
Yeah.
uploading.
So yeah, I'm just going up there with my family for a couple days and come back on Sunday.
Oh, that's cool. Little family vacay. Get some rest up there. Nice.
Get my nose all nice and dry because of the elevation.
Right. That's what happened to us the last time we were up there. What was that,
Yep.
like over a year ago?
Yep.
Yeah. That was fun. We should do that again. Rent a
Oh, man.
cabin up there in the woods. There's a sweet retro game store up there called the Warp Zone, actually.
What'd you get from there?
I bought a copy of Xenogears.
oh
Complete
yeah,
in the box.
that's right.
Black label edition. And very good price. It was like
Yeah, it was like
$30
$40.
I think it was, it was like $40. It's in perfect condition too, and it like runs perfectly. And yeah, it's like I think if I had more money and I had more time, I'd probably go up there and be like, I'm gonna buy like.
You
bunch
don't
of
need
this
to
stuff.
go all the way up to Lake Tahoe to buy retro games.
That's true, but that was a really cool store. I actually liked it a lot. I should give you a list and have you buy me something up there.
Okay.
I'll pay you back. But yeah, have fun in Tahoe.
I will. I'll try to.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well,
What do you got for this week?
I've got a 3-day weekend coming up because it's the Memorial Day weekend means that I as a manager of a retail location, a retail coffee shop, I get an extra day off. So
Wait, did you say Memorial Day?
it was a Memorial Day week. Yeah, for the week because it's like Memorial Day fell on like
it already passed.
the beginning of the week.
That
Yeah.
you have a 3-day weekend this weekend?
No, I have a 3-day weekend.
Will.
So I'm also celebrating. It's my mom's birthday this weekend. So
Yay.
my mom
Happy
is going
birthday,
to
Will's
be
mom.
66 now. She's official retirement age, I guess.
Well, it really depends on how much you can
Officially
save.
a senior. She officially a senior citizen now. So
No, it's 65.
65. Oh, okay, so she's already been one. So she's been milking those benefits. But yeah, we're gonna go out and celebrate and everything. Buy her some lunch because for some reason she like all she wants to do is like go get dim sum in Chinatown at this restaurant that we used to go to.
What's it called?
New Asia Garden. Have you ever been there?
New Asia? You mean the one on, what street is that?
Like Pacific or whatever.
Yeah, that's one I've gone to all the time with my family for banquets.
Yeah, so we're going there because we used to go there like every Saturday. My mom used to take me to Chinatown as a kid.
I've never been there in the daytime.
Yeah,
it's always nighttime.
It's good dim sum, It's one of those dim sum places where they bring the carts around. You're just like, I want one of those. I want 3 of those.
And then you just eat too much food.
You eat too much food, and then you get really sick because they didn't clean the shrimp well enough. I have all that personal experience from that.
Well, have fun with that.
Thanks, man. Not as exciting as yours, but from the sound of it, we're both going to spend all of our time with our family this weekend.
Yeah.
So. Our families, not one family.
To families.
Families! Hooray!
All right. Well, we are out of time here on this episode of RetroActive. We appreciate all you listeners coming out and listening to us talk about crap. So I hope you tune in next week, and we'll see you next week.
Next week.
All right. See you guys. Psst. Hey, you. You like what you heard? You should subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. Maybe even leave a comment somewhere, like right on your bathroom walls if you need to. You can also find us on Facebook at RetroActive Podcast, and on Instagram at retro.active, and then also on Twitter at _retroactive. Go on and do that. I'll be right here. I'll just wait.